Welcome to Evolve to Succeed, the podcast that brings together entrepreneurs, founders, business leaders and experts to talk about their journeys and explore the link between personal and business success. I'm your host, Warren Munson, founder of Evolve, a coaching, training and development company focused on enabling business and personal success and creating a community of like-minded individuals. Whether that be through our peer groups, one-to-one coaching, our training and development programs for you and your teams, or through our content and events, our mission is to get the best out of each individual and inspire them to be better both in life and in business. If you want to learn more about Evolve, including our beautiful co-working space in Ashley Cross in Poole, then please go to evolvemembers.com, where you'll find great content, insights, details of all of our services, and also information on our forthcoming events. For now though, let's get on with the show. This week I'm speaking to Richard Bassett, co-founder of Mentor 360, a wellbeing app that helps you form new habits, define positive progressions and set actionable outcomes. The ultimate aim of Mentor 360, dubbed a pocket life coach, is to build your mental fitness by helping you get to know yourself better. Before co-founding Mentor 360, Richard served within the UK military for over 25 years and therefore has been witness to those around him and closest to him that have had mental health issues and problems. Richard has also faced several challenges of his own, which he touches on during the course of our discussion. It's a great, wholesome conversation that includes discussions on physical exercise, the benefits that can bring, having purpose and forming a team, and so much more. I really hope you enjoy this episode. Welcome, Richard, to the Evolve to Succeed podcast.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
It's great to have you as a guest on the podcast, and you're here and we're going to talk about Mentor 360, the new app that you've developed for wellbeing, mental fitness and all other things to do with health and wellbeing. But before we do that, it would be wrong not to touch on your career today, a really successful career with both the Royal Marines and special military units for over 25 years. So I'm keen to learn from you, in what ways, it's a big question I know, Richard, but in what ways did your time in military kind of impact on your life?
Yeah, I guess that is a very broad question, and it's really, probably quite hard to answer, really. So I'll probably say, to start off with, I've been institutionalised of 25 years being in the military, and it has had many impacts on my life. I mean, the first one in question was probably when I first joined up. So I pretty much did GCSEs, did A-levels, went and laboured for a bit, and my mum's friend had joined the Marines and basically talked about it a lot, and I thought, I could have a go at this. Not having actually a clue what the Royal Marines really did apart from being military. So passed all the selection courses, got down, and you go into this induction block, they call it, where there's loads of beds, everyone sleeps opposite each other. You've got a guy which is sort of like a corporal, which basically bosses you around a lot, and that's okay, we can deal with that. And then I can never forget, it was a second exercise we went on, so basically, in essence, camping. Off we trotted, went into Woodbury Common, which is a pretty ghastly place, a lot of gorse, and there was a massive pool of water, and the corporal was like, getting that up to your waist, and this was about October, that what?
So this was camping as
this is hold on a minute, this is not what I signed up to. Anyway, out of the water, absolutely drenched, and then they're like, okay, start getting you into military practice. We have to do a sentry routine, which is spread amongst a lot of you, and you have to basically stand or sit, lie down by a tree and watch out just to make sure any enemy don't come after you. But the caveat to that is you get out of your wet kit, go into your sleeping bag, which is really comfortable, and then to go on sentry, you had to put your wet kit back on and stay in your wet kit for an hour as you looked out into the abyss, black darkness, and then you had this routine, so every 3 hours, which was delightful. And then you're like, what the hell have I let myself into? And I think behind the back of that was people saying, it's okay, you can quit at any time. And you're like, absolutely not. And that's how it started, really. Then we got into
it wasn't a natural instant love.
No,
life,
bloody wasn't. But as soon as it got into the sort of professional soldering side of it, it was good, and I liked doing the exercises and PT, if you like, and that was it. And I think what it did, it absolutely grounded me as a person. It taught me how to look after myself. It taught me discipline. It taught me routine. Yeah. And I guess it gave me the foundations, which has set me up through the sort of like my last 25 years, really. I mean, it gave me clear parameters and boundaries and something to work for. And that's kind of what the military does. It also allows you to bound, seek opportunity, identify it, and then chase it down, and going after the special military group was exactly one of those things. Yeah. So the experiences throughout the military, I think we've, many highs and many lows, I'd say, without a shadow of doubt. But it's for me, it's been an incredible foundation. And actually, the hardest piece has been to leave. Yeah. So I left in August, finished my sort of like career. And the challenge I found is to find true purpose again. Okay. Because
you had purpose.
Because you have a purpose. You're there. The purpose was a strategic goal, whatever it may be, in line with UK Defence's strategy. And then all of a sudden you're in those sort of like, quite key positions, and you're then out of it within a day. It's like, okay, blimey, what?
And I suppose all of that discipline and all of that routine and everything you've been used to for 25 years disappears.
Yeah, the foundations are there, but it's almost, okay, what do I chase down? What is, what's what is it? Yeah. And I think that's been the hardest challenge. And the work rate, it was, and the last couple of jobs was, most of my career has been fairly high tempo. Yeah. So all of a sudden you're then, focusing in the civilian world, and it's slightly different, and you've got to, operate slightly differently, and that's been the sort of like biggest challenge within this, I guess.
But I suppose interesting, isn't it? Because you often see, in the world in which I work, we work with many business owners, leaders, entrepreneurs, and those in the military do have a tendency to succeed, I think, because they bring some of that resilience, they bring that discipline, they bring that sense of, I need a purpose, and if they find the purpose, they go for it. Yeah. And they're relentless in it. So those skills are quite transferable, but you possibly, as people leave the military, don't quite realise that, and perhaps don't have the confidence to know that. Is that right?
I think that's a really fair comment. If there's a great guy, which is, I think he does some stuff with this, Mick. Yeah. And he would say, if he was sat here, you've got 70% of the skills you require to be, to operate in the civilian world. What you lack is the 30% technical knowledge, but you've got most of it. The feelings are the majority of the guys which I used to work with is you don't know what you don't know. Yeah. And so you've lived this world, this institution, and then you come out and you go, okay, well, great, I've got 70%, but how do I get those technical? Who will take a chance on me? What I need to do is try to experience the opportunities out there, and then work out what I need to do. Yeah. But at the same time, you've got the whole, actually, I've got a family. I need to provide for them. So it can't be trial and error. No. And that's the biggest challenge, I think, certainly from my perspective in the military, is the military does not give people enough time between, especially if they've done long careers, between leaving and trying new things, trial and error, before then getting your final pay. Right. It's 3 months. Yeah. Actually, probably, for someone who's been 26 years, 25 years, should be about 9 months to a year.
It's a lifetime in a career that you need to adjust from.
Yeah. And, a lot of people do, the classic phrase is the first job you start when you leave the military is not the one you'll end up doing. Yeah. But actually, you can reduce those odds and get it right if there was a proper
bit
transition.
More support.
Yeah.
It's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because it is a challenge. So, but you've obviously come out. If you came out in August, we're sat now here in January. So 5-6 months later, and you've got an idea of what you want to do, and you've set about to create Mentor 360. So tell us a little bit about what Mentor 360, the app, is and how the inspiration for it came about.
Okay, well, I'll flip that. I'll start with how it came about, and then we'll go into
what it is.
What it is, yeah. So I guess what was the true... There's a couple of genesises to the app, if that's the right word. The first one, sort of mental health in the organisation, sort of like as I, in the early days, it wasn't taboo as such, but it wasn't really talked about and people really come forward. And kind of that's how it operated. And a very good friend of mine, Jason, left through PTSD. He then returned back to give a brief on TRIM, so like a trauma course, how to manage trauma when people have gone through it. And he basically told his story. And he was telling stuff, and I was one of his best friends. I didn't know half the stuff, and I knew half the stuff, but I didn't know his feelings, right? And I wasn't there to support him as he was going through that. Yeah. So, it was the light bulb moment. I was a pretty rubbish friend because some of the times I was taking the mick out of him. But secondly, we needed to do more. So that was number one. I guess not in any particular order, but that was probably number one. Number two, I had... Throughout my career, I've had friends with PTSD, adjustment disorder, really poor with life skills. So that's another block. Some of my good veteran friends have committed suicide. Okay. My father committed suicide when I was 15.
Wow.
And my son, who is a lovely guy, suffered from misdirection, trying to find out his purpose.
Yeah.
And so... all of that grouped together and being in a sort of like fairly senior position, it was like, okay, how can we do more? And because the challenge with all of it has always been that most people never want to admit that they're struggling.
It's that saying that mine come out, it's okay not to be okay. But how many of us would actually admit that it's not okay? And absolutely.
And I think in my world, it's male orientated. It's alpha males. Yeah. And people don't like to admit a problem. Even my son, Josh, he struggled to admit that he struggles with misdirection. And so what I wanted to do was create a capability that was loaded with content, which would draw you in because we had everything from performance through to mental well-being with a bit of holistic in there. Some really good sound advice. And that it would encourage you to come into that, learn a bit about yourself, maybe give you the opportunity to discover other things, and actually, by working through it, become more self-aware. And if the outcome is, actually, I need to go and seek help, or I need to make a lifestyle change, or I keep using the app, or that's what we were after. It was very much about getting someone to an actionable outcome as a little pocket life coach. So that's kind of the genesis really behind it. And it is an altruistic piece. It's 40% of this app is free. It's arguably 50%. And that was because I wanted anyone who was skint with a phone could get some sound life advice. Yeah, no matter what. And then the other 50% is mainly functionality. Yeah. But that's always the aim.
And that's always been the set out from the start.
Completely. And I think long term, if this becomes more successful, I think it was reduce cost. Yeah. Reduce cost to even make that percentage at the end even more affordable than it is now. Yeah. Or remove it completely. That would be where you want to get to. Yeah. But for the time being, we're running it almost so that it covers its costs, and that's it.
Because it's a venture, it has to, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's not an endless pot of money that you can pile into.
I wish I had that, to be honest with you, but it's not. So that's, I guess, hopefully that's answered your questions there.
Definitely, without a shadow of a doubt. I suppose one of those, even for people to go and pick up their phone and take a look at the app, there is that kind of barrier still, getting people to recognise or realise they want to improve their self-awareness, their mental health. Yeah. They want to get into a better lifestyle and routine. How do you overcome those barriers? I mean, again, one of those big questions, I suppose, Richard, but because that's a challenge of the app, isn't it? It's great that you've got it there, but how do you get engagement?
I'd say I'm still learning. Okay. So I think So what we've tried to do is try and make it as human as possible. Number one, we've tried to offer a very wide range, as I described, from performance through to well-being. So a wide offering, which then hooks. We've then looked at influencers, which will hopefully promote, the app, but because they're all promoting it because it provides some good, sound, solid advice. And hopefully from that, someone will pick it up and take an interest. Yeah. But you're right. It's really hard to do anything but force. To try and force it, because fundamentally, the hardest thing is for someone to realise that there's something going wrong in order to address it, or they've got a problem. So what we're trying to do is, on the app, not only is it sort of like dealing with the sort of like more meaty subjects, but more generalist subjects. So it actually should be something that people pick up because it's got some good sound advice. And I think one of the sort of early conversations we had, it should be like someone who you used to go to, your grandfather, your mother, your grandma, whoever, which you always used to get sound advice from. That's what we wanted to try and exactly that. So, and that's what we're trying to encourage. And then you're down to the whole marketing piece of trying to get that sort of message out. But it's really important for us to. That's what we want it to be used for. And it's also important within the app that we're not saying like you need to be the illness every day. Yeah. Of course, you can go on every day. That's fine. But actually use it when you need it. Yeah. It shouldn't cause an addiction. No. So that's kind of what we're playing.
I suppose the app must signpost you as well. For those that are in immediate need and they go through, there's some signposts.
Yeah, absolutely. So within here we've got links to charities. So all the charities we chose within a 24-hour period, there is someone to speak to. Yeah. So, full 24-hour monitoring, stuff like the Samaritans, but there's other charities in there, Shout, which has, there's a phone call or text or whatever throughout the day. So that was important. And we've also got sort of like our clinical psychologist, Ali, which talks about sort of self-harm, suicidal thoughts with a video, bit of text, but also with the fact that it will signpost you as well. Yeah. And it's signposted to recognised very good charities which can provide support.
Brilliant. Fantastic. As well as the help.
Yeah, so we've kind of, it's tried to cover off the full spectrum.
There's an important piece there, isn't there? Yeah. An app's great and it can educate and it can support and it can give that kind of routine. And for somebody that's just suffering to a degree but needs some support, it can do it. But it needs to be able to say, there's a bigger issue here, get help.
And I think that's what you need to try and do. I mean, I would never say that's the solution. No. It's a tool. Yeah.
It sounds like it's a great tool that's going to help loads of people.
Thank you. And I think that's exactly what it wanted to be. But if you do need serious help, it's GP, it's 999, it's 111. Go and seek the proper advice if you need it. And you shouldn't be afraid to do so.
No. But I suppose what's really interesting is to see that your history and being really honest to say that with your dad and that with your son and that has given you that inspiration and that drive to do this. Yeah. And therefore, has it given you a new purpose outside of military life?
Yeah, I think it has. I sort of like juggle a sort of like PAYE job, a bit of consultancy, and then I do Mensa pretty much in every evening, Fridays and weekends. So it's fun. There is a purpose behind it, but I think sort of the wife, the dog, and occasionally the kids would go, what are you doing today? How's about you do something different? I thought I was going to see
more of you when he came out of the military.
Yeah, exactly. The dogs we got to just at the end of lockdown, just as I was finishing, we got a Springer Spaniel, and 6 months later, my wife was like, well, he needs a friend. Well, he doesn't need a friend, does he? But we're going to get one, aren't we? Yes, we are, because you're the wife and I, just as I'm told. And so we got a little cocker, and they are just characters in their own right. But they are dogs which need exercising, and if you're not taking them out, they just literally lay there, head on the floor, and sigh at you until and just you feel guilty. Yeah. So they are really good at it. So I'm still going to try and get that in, and actually that's really good for me because it gets you out of the house, it gets you out doing bits and pieces.
Well, I was going to start to talk about some of those things that make a healthy routine actually, and one of those is exercise, isn't it? In your view, you've come from that kind of suppose, extreme PT military form of exercise. We've just talked about simply walking the dogs. You know, how does exercise fit into a good daily routine in your opinion?
Yeah, for me, it sets myself up for the day, and I think for me as a routine, I've done it for so long that it is an essential part to clear my head, to set myself up for the day, without a shadow of doubt. But what I recognise now more so than ever is if I'm tired, and haven't had decent sleep, then if I go for a hard exercise session, it can be destructive, not rather than constructive. And then I think that's come with age more than anything. But for me, it's really, it sets me up. It really does. And if I haven't done it, if I can't do it, rather than it being chosen, if I can't do it, then I definitely don't feel the same each day.
It's just not you.
It's just not me, it needs, but I think that part of that is because I've done it for so long.
Yeah. And if you've got somebody listening that's thinking, actually, in January, lots of people have made New Year's resolutions and they're thinking they need to introduce more kind of exercise, physical activity into their life. Tips and thoughts on where they could start and how they should start?
So I think start steady. One thing we're trying to do with the app is just make it far more, if we've got a workout section, and make it far more progressive. That's going to come. But I don't, small steps.
Yeah.
What it is, most of exercise is about gaining confidence. So if you're not confident to go to the gym or go outside, there's plenty of stuff on the internet you can do in your house. And have the confidence just to, within that, just, in fact, build your confidence so that you feel that actually I can go out. And it's just small steps. It doesn't have to be, right, January the 1st has come, I'm going to flash myself. It is about building yourself up so you're happy for the next steps, which might be join a gym, and then you start steady progression. And I think some people might feel worried about their body size, shape, and they're probably the ones which are really self-conscious about that. But actually, when you go to gyms and that, no one really cares. They're just admirable that you're down there and you're doing your bits and pieces. So I think, my advice would be, if you want to go to the gym, go to the gym. Don't feel so self-confident. It's you which is feeling that, because no one else, everyone's in their own worlds and doing their own thing. So, get out there.
But that's a bit about that psychology and mental health, 100%. Fitness as well, is that we all have these hang-ups, don't we? And that people are judging us. And
I think that comes in every element of life. It does. If you have a bad day at work or you said the wrong thing, how many times do you go and reflect?
Yeah.
And you beat yourself up. Well, actually, what you should be doing is looking forward and just making sure you don't make the same mistake again. So take what you did and produce it and put it into something good, and change your approach. Yeah. And that's kind of probably how you should do stuff. And that is one thing I learned from the military. You try and get hung up, you just go nowhere.
Yeah, I suppose it can eat you up.
And really can. And you see people, certainly from PTSD, people which have had PTSD, it's often because they overanalyze it. They feel guilt. They feel like they've let people down, and then it builds rather than the actual event. Yeah. So it's all about trying to learn and move forward.
Yeah, and adjust. And I suppose we started to touch there on creating great habits, and those great habits can be exercise, they can be eating, they can be nutrition, they can be just taking some time out to think every day and be calm. There's clear benefits of creating habits. Is there any tips and hints and things that you would say about how to create great habits?
I'm probably not the best. If my wife was here, she'd just look at me and raise an eyebrow.
Well, she'll be listening to the podcast, I'm sure.
Of course she will, and she'll be like, you told a porcupine. I don't know. I think probably my top tip is try and create a decent routine and carve out time for you and your family would be my top tip. Because that's important, and because you can keep flogging yourself, and I say that after mentioning that I've got 3 things going on and the kids and the dog are fed up with me, but the point is that if you can actually try and get, so you do make sure you have your downtime, you do make sure you take time for exercise if you want to, you do make sure you eat properly, you do make time for your friends. It's most of it's about routine, and actually if you're not doing it, you probably just need to have a bit of reflection and readjust. Because you do need that social aspect to your life, even with COVID going on. Yeah, you still need that social aspect, that interaction. It's really good for you. So it's. I guess those are probably my top habits.
But it's true, isn't it? I think self-care, as I would call it, is about routine, isn't it? You know,
Yeah.
and I need that routine. I need to get up. I need to maybe do some breath work, some sort of stretching, some mobility stuff, and then some exercise, and try and then get into my day if I can.
Yeah.
That way with the positivity. And like you say, if I don't do that, if I miss an element of that,
Yeah.
I kind of feel it, and I feel it throughout the whole day.
Yeah.
It's not just temporary feeling. But at times when life is good, you can probably skip it a bit.
Yeah.
But the reminder is, and you know, I've had some challenges recently, and I've had to remind myself, right, just increase the self-care.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's really important. It's
Yeah.
really important.
Yeah,
Without a shadow of doubt, because otherwise you get lost.
And you do, you know, the app's very holistic, which is great, because that's the important thing. But you do talk about, I love the phrase, you talk about mental fitness,
Yeah.
you know, within the website and the app quite a lot, rather than mental health.
Yeah.
What do you think the difference between the two of those things is?
Yeah, if I was, fundamentally honest, there is, part of this is a mental health app. You can't, but actually it's your approach, isn't it? Because with mental health, we all know, and I think we're coming out of this, but there is a stigma attached to it. So it's, from our perspective, our initial approach was to actually, let's call it mental fitness, because there's good stuff, there's stuff in there which isn't related to mental health. It's just linked to emotions, and it's good advice. All of this is non-prescribed, non-diagnosed. It supports the sort of like emotional side of life. So we termed it mental fitness to begin with. We're now actually looking more to call it, in line with a pocket life coach, because linking back to what I said about your granddad, your mum, your dad, giving you good life advice, that's what it's about.
Yeah.
And it gives you the solid sound foundations written by clinical experts, which you can apply to your life. That's what it's about. And that's whether it's be stress, anxiety, or you're nervous about coming on the podcast. It is literally, that's what we're trying to do. So we're kind of morphing, but even though if you stripped it all back, what you can't deny there's mental health.
Yeah, it's well-being. Isn't it? It's mental well-being, and it's physical and
absolutely
mental well-being. And I suppose that's the pocket life coach.
Yeah.
I love that phrase.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think, so that phrase came about where the guys I worked with in the content One Fit Life, there's a great guy called David there, and he basically put me through a 4-hour session of going, but why? But why? What is it? But why? And every time he says why and what is it on future interactions, I sort of like started to wobble. My knees started to wobble. It's like being in training again. But when you start having those conversations and the why, you actually start realizing, okay, that's what it's about. And sometimes going back to habits, sometimes you do have to ask yourself why, and is it important? But he actually, through absolutely thrashing me, that's where Pocket Life Coach came from. Yeah,
an interrogation and a half.
Yeah, it was miserable. I don't think I've had a worse one.
But it just sums up what you're looking to achieve and trying to achieve. And I think a big part of, from what I see, what you're trying to achieve is and you touched on one, Jason, but you are getting those influencers to actually support the app and what you're looking to achieve, and they're wholeheartedly supporting it. We talk about Jason. It's Jason Foxy of SAS, Who Dares Wins type approach, and you've got Tommy Mallet from Towie, and you've got others. How important do you think it is to have those influencers as part of the Mental 360 app?
So I think it's important. I think it's, they have massive followings, and social media, what you can't do is hide from it. It's out there, and it's all the influencers we used all have had some sort of mental health related piece going on.
And what's great is that they're all honest about it, aren't they?
Yeah.
On the website, they've all got short videos. They're all telling their story, and they're being open and honest and transparent. Yeah.
And I think that's the value, is that you've got someone who has got a status in one way, shape or form, more so than the norm, which is quite happily to open up and say, yeah, this is me, and you look at Tommy Mallet and, uber successful in the Forbes list for under 30s. And yet he's happy to talk. I've had some deep-seated bits and pieces go on. I struggled at school and all sorts. He's got a great story. And he's become super successful from that. And you actually think, hopefully that will encourage people to go, from our perspective, go on the app and try and learn a little bit about themselves, become more self-aware, get themselves to an actionable outcome. That's success. So it was absolutely using them as a mechanism to attract. But they've got some great stories, so let's share them.
There's some integrity and honesty completely behind why they're supporting the app, isn't there?
Absolutely. And so that was a sort of like line to go down, because otherwise, it's and hopefully some of that will resonate with someone.
Definitely. Yeah, and one of the things I suppose it leads, and a question I often ask is this effect of social media on our lives. Obviously, you're developing technology in an app, but there is also that impact of technology on everyday lives, and particularly our children, and the next generation. And I mean, what's your thoughts on that, and how can we help our children bring and use that social media and that technology in a positive way? Yeah,
well, I think it's really hard, isn't it? Because I grew up without social media.
As did I.
And me going into tech and developing an app, I've had to then start learning about social media, and I still don't have a clue. But fortunately, I've got a great couple of team which do it, so it's great. But I think used in the right, sorry, I step back, but what you can't get away from is phones are a massive part of our life. I mean, even this conversation picked up a couple of times to demonstrate, but they are. If you, when I was a kid, it was a phone box and a phone number, and you used to run to the phone. If you didn't want to talk at home because you knew people were listening, you ran to the phone box to have a conversation. And now how many people would actually honestly leave their phone behind and go, right, I'm out for an hour,
and I feel comfortable,
and then get through the door and don't immediately look for their phone. So I think if we take the reality of it is these have become an extension, of ourselves, and our lives are on there. Everything from photos to messages, you name it's on there. So the challenge with social media is to use it for benefit, because there's some children out there, it can have a negative effect. Let's not beat around the bush.
Got to say that,
It can have a negative effect, but actually used in moderation, there's some amazing advice in there, and it's how you extract that in order to better yourself. And there lies the challenge, because there is so much, and what avenue do you fall down, and how do you chase it down? But used in the right way, and because it's an extension, actually, that's how it needs to be managed. So moderation, really.
I suppose it is, but it's also a realisation that, the way in which we interact and grew up interacting in the social fashion, the next generation or generations to come on, they're using that, and they're getting great support from friends because they're interacting. But it's taking the positivities, isn't it? And
absolutely.
Removing some of the noise.
And I think, the challenge to everyone is to put it down, walk away from it, have a conversation like we're having today, perhaps not with the microphones, but actually make a point of talking rather than, chatting through text or emails, because how much is lost in translation in a text and an email. And actually, most of it's resolved over body language and face to face. And I think kids anyway shouldn't lose that, because social interaction is so important.
Definitely,
it really is important. But moderation is probably the key takeaway.
Perfect. I've got to ask, an individual that's come out of the military 5-7 months in is, and you've alluded to yourself, developing a tech app now. Military, physical activity, get out there, get the job done, not necessarily teaching you how to develop a tech business. So what help have you leaned on? How have you gone about developing a technology business as an ex-service personnel?
Learning by doing.
Okay. Get on and do it.
So I've been really fortunate. So the journey to get investment was through EPM were great to me. They helped me develop a pack, investor pack, and from that, through Foxy, I met a great investor called Shanyan Koda. who I sort of like, we had a general conversation about supporting children actually.
Okay.
And it was Foxy had met her at a dinner and thought actually this is a great person to have a future conversations with, so brought me in. And then mid conversation about how we support children and mental health within children, and we were there with Ali, our psychologist, now psychologist, clinical psychologist, and Foxy, psychologist at the time. And Foxy dropped me in. It was like, well, Richard's got an idea of an app. Why don't you have a look? I was like, okay. So conveniently, I did have a bit of a video. I've just got it here. And it was a bit of a conversation about, okay, this looks great. Go away, do financials, build up a bit of a pack, business plan, and come back to me. So that was the start of the journey of, okay, how to do this. So I knew I wanted to capitalise on the phone to get a message across. Probably the best way I understood it was an app, so that's what I wanted to chase down.
Yeah.
I'd then been introduced to an investor which basically really liked what I was saying but wanted me to do some more work. And then I went through this journey with a guy called Kev Godlington, amazing guy, which basically gave me advice, and it was really good advice. It was basically how to build a pack, and he's, in his own right, he's a multi-millionaire, and he completely free time just sat me down over Zoom calls and basically told me, do this. And it was like being at school again. He basically told me to do something, I'd do it, and he'd
go away, do your homework, come back.
And it was, when the moment you send on that email, you're like, oh, right, have I? Yeah, I think I've done it. And then you'd send it and then come back and you'd be like, no, I clearly didn't. Right, let's go back again. So we went through this stage, and within that, every now and again, I'd resend a pack out. And eventually, after, I think, pure persistence, Jan met me for a coffee, COVID coffee at the time. It was just when we got back into, you can go to a coffee shop. I was like, okay, I'll invest in you. And I nearly fell off my chair. So literally rung the person which had, has been a massive, massive part of this app, which is Dot, who's helped with design and everything. Incredible talent, incredible. And said, yeah, we've got investment. Here we go. What do I do? So, okay, build a team. EPM are going to build the app. Get some great psychologists. Need to understand what content is, social media, legal. And sort of almost, okay, this becomes a project management piece, really.
Yeah.
And then, a year later after the investment, the app was launched. But it's been a sort of wicked journey. So I don't know why tech, but I just knew deep down that, I did want to help people. I had the last positions I was in the military, helping people was, part of the role, but I got a lot from it personally.
Right, okay.
I found it incredibly rewarding just for someone to say thank you. And you might have done something, the smallest thing, and they've said thank you. And, that was better than anything that anyone could say. And, and I thought, actually, that's kind of, I don't need that. But it's actually, that's the sort of line I want to pursue with this, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does complete sense.
So in that year, from September to September, effectively, it's just been absolutely learning by doing. And Kev, and there's a guy called Dave Peach, which have given me a bit of direction. Sean Yan, the investor's given a bit of tweaks here and there, and it's been getting some advice of different people saying this, and then
and do you think that
exploring
that is filling some of that gap from being, because you talk about individuals and you can see you light up and thanks, you can see the gratitude you have for how they've helped you and participated in your story, and do you think that is giving you that team spirit that you probably could have lacked coming out of the military?
Yeah, I think so. Without a shadow of doubt, in fact. I mean, what Mentor is growing into is a real community. You've got Foxy, who, once again, I couldn't have done this without him, and you've got the EPM team, Dot and Sam, and that sort of crew. You've got the One Fit Life team, which and people are believing it, which is great because you think you've got a good idea, and there's people buying into it, which is fantastic. And you've got this community where people are giving you feedback, and you're like, that, okay, this is great. This is, and so for me, how I want to develop it is quite a community app, if I can, long term. So it's really pulling people into use it as maybe a support mechanism, but also try and grow it out. So not far down the line, we're having some true life stories on there where people are happy to share what they've been through, their own experiences. I mean, some of them are laying it on the line, and we do have to be careful with that, because what we don't want to do is expose other people to their trauma, which might instigate a problem. So we have to really be very careful with the content. But there's people wanting to say, look, I've been through this, and then hopefully, just as a celebrity does, they will encourage someone to go, you know what, okay, let's get on this. And like I said,
seek help and improve their lives and make a difference.
Yeah, and I think if the app provides a springboard to that, and that's all they use it for, and they turn it off after a month, 2, whatever, that's success. Okay. That is success. So that's what we're after trying to do, really.
Brilliant. I often, as we come to the end, talk about success and what a definition of success is, and I suppose we've got successful Mentor 360 there, but what's your personal definition of success?
Oh, crap. You're asking some good questions. I don't know. My idea for success for me is pretty simple, probably. What do I want? Be with my family and grow old with them. It is as simple, and in a position where I can help the children out, and me and my wife just have a great quality of life, being able to go for walks and that sort of stuff. It's nothing glamorous. It is literally just enjoying being indoors here, and living that sort of life. It's really simple. I think that's what success looks for me, because so much of my career I spent away from home. Yeah. So success is actually being able to spend time with the people you love. Yeah. And that is success. For the app, success is perpetuity. That sustains in perpetuity. That's what I want for the app. If I may do a final plug, I mean, we've just secured a partnership with the NHS, working with primary care. So that's a 12-month project and a partnership, And for us, that really did validate what all the clinicians and our processes. So, that as well has been really important to us.
That must have been a really interesting process to go through.
Yeah, I mean, so if we've got time, I guess it came from the social media. The person involved, Nikki, who's absolutely amazing, she saw Tommy Mallet ride on a Peloton bike. From that, she basically looked at that, was like, I wonder what that's about, because I like Peloton, linked to the app, and then she got in touch. Incredible, it's like winning the lottery, right? And we sort of slowly built this relationship. So going to your sort of like, how's it progressing? In order to do that, we've had to go through the NHS information government hoops and all those bits and pieces. So really assured up the capability in order to get to where we are going to be in February, where we're going to launch with them, only very small scale, but hopefully it will scale up, supporting patients while they're in primary care waiting for treatment. So I think what that really validated for me is, there's people within the NHS acknowledging a problem, working forward it. We've been very fortuitous that they've seen us as the opportunity to help. And so they'll, within a couple of cohorts, they'll post them to the app. Wow. So why I say that is it's been great like I said, the process has been validated, the idea, all that.
And that's, you never know where something like that pilot program,
and
that altruistic thing about wanting to help people.
Yeah,
you're getting the app out there, aren't you? To a place where people are in need.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's sort of like been bubbling away and sort of like confirmed, and you're like that. Absolutely.
Yeah. How did you feel when that happened?
The initial bit is, oh goodness, I've got a lot more work to do.
It's an honest response.
Rather than being, obviously I was super pleased, but it was almost now there's a lot to do. So yeah.
Brilliant. And if people want to find out more about you, or more importantly, more about Mentor 360, the app, where can they go?
So it's either website mentor360.com, or it's on the Android and iOS stores, Mentor 360. Go on there and do take a look.
Yeah, fantastic. Listeners, please do. Richard, you've been a great guest on the Evolve to Succeed podcast. I've really enjoyed our conversation. Good luck with the future and what it may hold.
Yeah, lovely. Thanks for having me, Warren. Cheers.
Thank you for listening to the Evolve to Succeed podcast. My hope with every episode is that you've learned something new or heard something that challenged your way of thinking and further motivated you on your path towards becoming a more knowledgeable, informed and inspired individual and business leader. If you enjoyed this episode, then please help us by rating, reviewing and subscribing. We really value your feedback and would love to have you along for future episodes. And please don't forget to learn more about Evolve by going to evolvedmembers.com. Thank you for listening. See you next week.